on in the only French book titled Les Andes Rouges. Excuse my French with Bangladeshi accent. Now, I would like to request the Honorable ULAB Board of Trustees Vice President and a notable writer himself, Dr. Qazi Anis Ahmed, to come up on stage to give a welcome speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this wonderful talk that we are anticipating from one of the great writers of our times, Monsieur Henri Lévy. It's my great privilege and honor to be able to welcome him to ULAB. A university is a philosophical institution. Pressures of modern society and the marketplace is forcing us to behave or act like polytechnics. But at heart, we are and we must remain philosophical institutions. But what is philosophy? In the Western tradition, it is a system of thought based primarily on reason. But what has drawn me personally always to Western philosophy from the time I was a very young man among the academic disciplines, it was my first passion, is the fact that I always felt that Western philosophy is far more capable of addressing and engaging with its philosophical other than other systems of thought. While it hinges on reason, it embraces instances of lack of reason and instances that are not penetrable or accessible to reason, and instances of indeterminacy, incertitude, multiplicity, and ambiguity much better than other systems of thought. And that's what has always attracted me to Western philosophy. And in my case, those very qualities of philosophy or philosophical thinking led me eventually to the speculative art of fiction. But one of the great contradictions of Western philosophy is that it's a system of thought that has traditionally been very preoccupied on thought itself, whereas in Oriental philosophy, Confucianism or the Indian traditions of philosophy were also very focused, even the Islamic tradition was very focused on actual conduct of life, both for the individual and in our collective forms of human organization. Western philosophy, especially in recent decades, has sometimes gone so far in these recognitions of indeterminacy that it has almost become paralyzed. It has been unable to form judgment, to sustain commitments, to take action. Into that breach comes Monsieur Henri Lévy, someone who has thought, who has grappled with these issues, from Levinas to Derrida, many influences. He has articulated their positions in ways that are also accessible for general audiences, not only specialist philosophers. But most of all, what I have enjoyed from afar until now was to watch a philosopher in the field of action. When he came to Bangladesh in 1971, following his great inspiration, Andre Malraux's advice or exhortation, at that time he was of course not a man of the fame that he enjoys today. He was actually back then a young man like many of our students who are sitting here today. He came here and he participated with spirited action. But for him, it was not just a, quote, youthful adventure. That commitment to, on the one hand, being a thinking person, and on the other hand, to be a committed person of action, not just an activist. One of the problems of the activist position is that it often becomes only a protesting role and not necessarily an advocacy of proactive role. And this is an example of action he has carried through many instances throughout his life, including very notably in the mid-90s in Bosnia. He was a strong advocate of intervention there when many people in the West felt they had no, quote, strategic interest to intervene there. And even more recently, a similar example in the case of Libya. So for him, it has been a lifelong journey of trying to meld thought with action. In a much smaller way, I and my co-workers here, for us, the building of this institution actually embodies that kind of principle of action. We could read books, write books, talk about it, and stop there. But what will really engender a new generation of thinkers, and thinkers who will also be committed actors in society and in the greater world stage? An institution that sustains that kind of thinking. So that's the kind of principle to which ULAB is committed, and therefore it is a great honor and opportunity for us to be able to welcome one of the great thinker actors of our times. I really won't extend my comments too much, because to take any seconds away from Mr. Bernard